can tell me no other human will ever know.
There is no plan.
We would never end the ship. We designed the damn thing, didn't we?
We were hidden in the first booster rocket to separate. Splashed down back in the Atlantic just as planned. We ain't going nowhere.
Excuse me! I thought today's subject was gravity.
Okay, fine. Fine. I'm just trying something a little new with you guys, but I can see you're just not ready for it yet. Okay, we'll go by the book. You happy? Gravity is the centripetal force that keeps the Earth from flying to pieces, and the universe from becoming a dark, endless, desolate cloud of dust. Wow, bummer.
Mr. Seaver,
Huh?
What does that mean in English?
A fair question. A very fair question. Does anybody have the answer to that? Well, before I give you my personal explanation, why don't we see what the so-called experts have to say? The Earth's gravity exerts a constant and equal force on all objects, regardless of mass. For example, a feather and a coin must fall at exactly the same speed.
Mr. Seaver,
What?
you just said a feather and a coin would fall at exactly the same speed.
I certainly did not. Oh, I did.
Well, they don't. I tried it.
Well, the book says that they do, so why don't we just move on, okay?
Prove it.
Okay. Okay, fine. Feather, quarter.
The book's wrong. End of story.
They checked this stuff out before they printed it. Okay. I got it.
It doesn't matter how you drop them. You can blow them out your ears if you want. Smart money's on the quarter.
I don't get this. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
The SpaceX Falcon 9 is going to launch from Vandenberg Air Force Base, and it's going to launch in just about a minute, maybe a little less here, and we should be able to see it right here in our night sky. And what's going to be very cool is because the sun isn't completely down on the West Coast, we should then see the sun hit the rocket. I'm going to get out of the way just in case this thing launches so that we can see it. That red flare off in the distance, that is it going straight up. Incredible right there, and it's going to go pretty high. Watch it go. And there we go. It's starting to tilt a little bit. What a sight to see. And there we go. It's starting to tilt a little bit. It's going to go pretty high. Watch it go.
No, I'm saying we didn't go to the moon because I can literally prove it a million ways. You know, it's like, name one other time any human being has explored someplace exciting and other countries didn't follow. Name one other time technology went in reverse and got more expensive to produce. Name one other time that the greatest moment in human history was deleted to save tapes by an organization that gets $24 billion a year. The moon rocks have traces of uranium isotopes and brass that only occur, they're man-made from Earth. Neil Armstrong, his body language and his verbal demeanor was distancing himself from all actions when he was on the moon, and they wouldn't let him give another interview for 30 years. The rock he gave Holland was a piece of petrified wood. I don't even have to touch the Van Allen belt. And dude, look at how Bush, Clinton, Obama, they all said we're going back to the moon. Gearing up, bailed. Well, what about private? Elon Musk said he's going to the moon, bailed. Now he's going to Mars. Oh, well, there's nothing on the moon. Of course there is. There's a $1 trillion tourism business to go to the moon. It would be the best place to study Earth. You can study the stars all day long. You can study how gravity affects we have bases on Antarctica and the North Pole and Greenland and everywhere, but for some reason we have none on the moon. And people being like, one day we will get people past low Earth orbit. It's like, we did, right? Do you forget that Wernher von Braun said that we would require a rocket ship the size of the Empire State Building to go to the moon? No other country has ever gone. None of it makes sense. It's provable. They deleted 1 metric ton of telemetry data, and then people go, well, it's unusable tapes. They claim they reused the tapes. According to the New York Times, NASA said they had to reuse the tapes because they were facing budgetary problems. Well, no, you're in cognitive dissonance. You have just been trapped in cognitive dissonance. If your argument about reusing the tapes just immediately got shot down and now you're trying to get another one, you're not open to a new argument. Neil Armstrong, and here's the biggest one by far, because people can say, Big Bear, you're not an expert of the Van Allen belt. That's why I don't even touch those things. I am an expert at mass communication. I understand television production. I was on PSTV in Plattsburgh State University. I get it. I understand, not only am I smart enough to figure out the shit, but just to let you know, I know what it is. The amount of electricity it takes to broadcast a live television broadcast is not remotely possible from any of the specs from the moon. Add on to that, you're flying through space. You're going through 237,000 miles of a vacuum through a radiation belt, like a horrific radiation belt going to the Earth in the late 1960s, and people can hear you talk without enough delay to make it. They did a 4-second delay because the retards didn't realize it would have been more like a 30-second delay. It's all a lie. And of course I want to believe it. I used to want to be an astronaut. I used to want to be a paleontologist. And I'm having a hard time with macroevolution. I wanted to be a comedian in clubs. I'm not allowed anymore because I don't think children are trans. Life has a bunch of problems in it. This is what happened with the space landing hoax. Every fucking place I looked revealed more and more of the hoax. Everywhere. The shadows, them trying to recreate the shadows, all this stuff that makes for bad arguments. Scott Adams does a good job of explaining this. The laundry list is a bad argument. Where if I talked about the reflections or shadows or any of this stuff, people have quick responses to that. My arguments are home run, bullet to the head arguments. There is no chance you can broadcast live television from that distance with that amount of power now, let alone in the late 60s. It's all bullshit. And every stone you open, you realize it never happened. And then people say, well, wouldn't it be cheaper to... They wanted to go to the moon. John Kennedy ran his mouth in 62 and said, I choose the moon, and so they tried to figure it out. They realized they couldn't. that we're in a Cold War, our country's falling apart, we're in an unwinnable war. Martin Luther King Jr. is getting shot, Bobby Kennedy, JFK, people are getting dropping. You know, the country is, there's bombings, there's riots. You think now's bad? Dude, it was bad. There's a serious communist threat in America. You got Jane Fonda straddling a fucking giant gun over in Hanoi. We had to boost morale. We had to win the Cold War. We thought Russia was about to get there. It isn't this like heart of darkness evil that motivated it. Now it is. Now they use it as a tool of deception because they had to commit to the lie. When you tell a lie, you have to tell millions more lies to keep that lie alive. It made sense to lie. I get it. At this point, it is a fucking movie production that they're just shitting it out just so that no one can admit the lie. It was just like how communism doesn't work as an economic system. You have Mao Zedong, Stalin. These people are letting millions and millions of people starve to death with the Great Leap Forward to prop up a lie because people are dying. They were taking the wheat and pushing it together and putting children on the wheat like they have so much fucking food that they can prop humans up on it. And then as soon as the camera stopped rolling, they hid the fucking skeletons. That's what this is. That when you make a lie, you put your fucking chips in and it's not true, you're about to start lying until your entire society collapses. And you know I'm right. And you keep, like, I've had close friends. People be like, well, what did it hurt? You know, it's good morale. It's good. What did it hurt? The entire society is now based on a lie. Astronauts are priests. Elon Musk shooting fucking cars through this rover lander. None of it's real. It's all bullshit, dude. And it's like, what's the hurt and lie? It also creates cognitive dissonance amongst the population so that they get lied to and they don't care. That's the whole problem. Once you no longer trust your instincts, once you accept wizardry, once your instincts say something doesn't add up about this, and then someone says, but just be quiet, and you go, okay, then you can no longer figure out what's true and false, and you become cattle. That's why it fucking matters. That's why it matters. And you guys get it. You know it. There's still 5,000 fucking people here. Oh, and talk more flat earth. This is the thing I want to ask the round earth people to explain to me. If the earth is spinning at 700 miles an hour, 1,100 miles an hour, whatever, why isn't the air spinning? And before you answer real fast and say, oh, it's all relative, it's all the same shit, the higher you go in the air, the less atmosphere there is until there's almost no atmosphere. Like 40,000 feet up, there's almost no atmosphere. So where is the break where you get away from the atmosphere in which it's no longer relative? This is a lot harder than I expected, proving that the earth is round. It's fucking weird. It is way, way, way harder. The jet stream's 100 miles an hour. You ever see 100 mile per hour winds? Oh yeah, 1,000 miles per hour ain't happening. Dude, I'm telling you, it's fucked up. So, if the earth is spinning 1,100 miles an hour, and the atmosphere somehow miraculously is attached to the earth, is that what kind of friction is that? Sliding friction is when the molecules are touching, so sliding friction is moving it along, right? Fine. When you go up enough, there's no more atmosphere. So you are now just, like if you're in a hot air balloon that goes up 30,000 miles, there's no atmosphere. So why isn't the earth flying by? Stop talking about this? Now you're banned. Why don't you join Coddington Bear? The fuck out of here. No one needs your shit. There's no wind because we are in a vacuum. We both know that doesn't make any sense. And I'm not a flat earth person. I want someone to fucking explain that to me. Atomic density? Saying words don't explain anything. Just saying atomic density. Friction. I just said that. There's several types of friction. That friction would be the sliding friction, where it's two objects touching each other, kind of like two boards. We have molecules of the atmosphere, and if it's attached to our spinning shit, fine. You go up 40,000 feet, There's no atmosphere, none. It's basically a vacuum. So where do you pop out of that situation? The jet stream, that's 100 miles an hour, not 1100. So far, no one's been able to explain that to me, which is fucking weird. Please comment on it. I would love to stay a globe earth person, because being a flat earth person is another level of ostracism that I really don't want at all. So please, for the love of God, someone fucking explain to me, why when you leave the Earth's atmosphere, does the Earth not at that point appear to be going 1100 miles an hour underneath you? Here's another one. Why do flights not go around the poles? Please explain this to me, because I do not like where the logic is taking any of this. It's not fun. It's actually incredibly isolating, and I don't want it at all. The last thing I need in my life is to be given another label that makes me look insane. That sounds awful. Someone said not flat. Well, please fucking tell me how you can go up into near-Earth orbit and stay still, and the Earth is not flying by if it's spinning on a goddamn axis. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't explain it, can you? The fuck? Inertia, that doesn't mean a goddamn thing, and we both know it. Inertia. Someone just says inertia. You don't think I know about inertia? Owen is dumber than I thought, says Martin. Okay, Martin, you're no longer allowed to talk to the grown-ups. I'm obviously not dumb. If I was dumb, 3,552 people wouldn't be watching me after 2 hours and 11 minutes of me just talking. Dumb people don't retain that amount of people. You're just a stupid person. The worst is, like, I obviously understand physics. The Earth isn't flat. That's fucking insane. And if you break the fucking atmosphere, even out of relative, whatever relative is, and you're flying in a direction opposed to the spinning, why don't you double your speed? Like if you're going 1,100 miles an hour, why is it not 2,200 miles an hour if the Earth is going the opposite direction? What the fuck is that? So far, I've got nothing on it. No one can explain it. Okay, guys, all the people saying that the Earth is round, there's no way they understand the particle density and radio theory. So when they say everyone's retarded who thinks the Earth is flat, they don't understand why they think the Earth is round, is my bottom line. They don't. So when people just go, oh, well, it's clearly just radio theory and fucking frequency and fucking particle. No, you don't know. You don't know. And you're trying to fucking hold on to something that you don't understand. And that's the problem I have. Is people with this condescending, shitty attitude, but they don't actually know anything. They go, oh, I mean, you're such a fucking idiot. Explain to me how NASA shows us images of the Earth that are photoshopped. The clouds are fucking duplicates of the other clouds in the fucking thing. Does that not ring any bells? And I'm incapable of going with lies. I'm fucking capable of it. The Earth isn't flat. There's no fucking way the Earth is flat. That would probably cause me some type of nervous breakdown if that were the case. So can someone, for the love of everything good, explain to me without nonsense talk like, oh, inertia. Oh, inertia. Do you know what inertia means? Do you understand the calculations of inertia? No, you fucking don't. It doesn't answer a goddamn thing just to say inertia. Coriolis effect proves the Earth isn't flat. I believe that as well. I really hope we have more than the Coriolis effect. Really hope we have more than that, guys. Really hope we have more than the Coriolis effect. If the Earth is flat, why lie about it being round? What is the point? I can tell you a lot of reasons. If the Earth is flat, I may tap out of YouTube for a while. Like, that would fuck me up. But I am not enjoying the path that this is taking me on, because the arguments for the Earth being round are not very strong at all. Like, at all. And this is something I would never, ever, ever, ever question. Ever. And another thing is when I questioned that the moon landing didn't happen, like everybody was like, oh, in a month he'll think the earth is flat. Oh, this retard's gonna think the earth is flat. By the way, I'm not arguing that the fucking earth is flat. I just want people to fucking explain to me how it's round. I'm watching you go through what I went through before I believed the earth was flat. It's hysterical and amazing. Can't get enough of your show. I'm not comfortable with any of this. And I'm not on board with the flat earth thing at all. I'm just finding the arguments for round earth to be, because I'm preparing to debate. And so I want my fucking arguments concrete. The arguments for round earth are horrible. How about until the flat earthers can build their own rockets and take pictures, we don't stress over it? Well, NASA has been proven to be the biggest liars on the fucking planet. So, and they have. Like, a bunch of flat earth people have gotten balloons to go up 120,000 feet, and they take pictures of a world with no curve. I'm not comfortable with any of it, neither are you, but I'm just reporting the fucking facts. And don't get mad at me, man. Don't fucking blame the messenger, dude. I'm like in this thing to win it, and I'm not gonna fucking go in there half-cocked and be like, dude, the earth is round. Just look at the fucking shit. It's not easy to prove, guys, because I don't do sophistry or wizardry in debates. I'm not gonna go in and shame someone or use tricks, rhetoric tricks. I want hard motherfucking evidence that the earth is round, and I've never been up there. Just someone give me a concrete, obvious fucking thing to let me win this fucking debate. Do your research then, Owen. Okay, now you're banned. You don't think I do research? I listen to shit while I'm doing fence work all day, and then I look it up in books. Here's how I would try to explain it. Since the earth is spinning, so is air attached to the surface of the planet. When you fly in the direction of the opposite of the spin, you are fighting at speed. Right. So if you're not in the air, right? And don't fucking get mad at me if this makes your head hurt. Just know that I'm not trying to fuck with you, okay? If the air is part of the spin and you get above the air, which is what flights do, why are you still subject to the subjective relative air movement of the spin of the earth? Let's say the air is cemented to the earth, which already is weird, because if you spin a ball in water, the water doesn't stay with the ball. Maybe a little bit, but not really. Let's say the air is completely with the spin of the earth. You are now above the air. Why the fuck are you still subject to the relative spin of the earth? If you're going against the spin, why are you not going twice as fast? And don't just say you're a retard, you're a conspiracy. What the fuck? Do you guys seriously think that Ardian motion inertia means anything in this? Like, please look up the words you fucking use. That doesn't mean anything. Ardian motion inertia. What does that mean? If I had a gun to your fucking head and say, define what you just said, what does that mean? You would say, oh, I mean, it's... Oh, and telescope. So all the planets and moons we see through a telescope are round, so Earth is the only planet in our solar system that's flat. Really? Okay, retard. Imagine they're all flat discs, right? Do we see spheres in the sky? Dude, I'm getting angry because everybody that's acting like I'm retarded has not thought through any of their arguments. So if we see a bunch of circles in the sky, does that mean they're spheres or fucking dinner plates? You can't prove it. You can't prove it. That isn't a fucking argument. And if you're just gonna hang me out to dry, like I'm gonna go argue somebody, and your whole argument is you look in the sky and you see circles, and that means something is a fucking sphere, I'm getting angry at the concept that I can't win this debate. Dude, take a pill, way too much drama, bro. Well, you're now banned for life. I've had 4 drinks. I just hung out with my wife. I'm having a great time. Also, how can you see trillions of miles away? It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense. Someone please explain it to me that isn't retarded. Some people are thinking centrifugal force. That doesn't mean anything, and we both know that doesn't mean anything. How come when you look at a boat going out to sea and it vanishes at the viewer's convergence point, look through a pair of binoculars, you can see the boat again? The Earth isn't, it can't be flat. I mean, that would just be insane. I don't... Oh, Eric, I won't destroy you too bad. I'm gonna win. That's why I'm fucking... Oh, Eric is actually here taking notes. I'm gonna win, Eric. That's why I'm taking this seriously. I need my people to fucking give me some intel. It's all science fiction, not an argument. Space is a vacuum, not an argument. Do you guys know what arguments are? Does anyone know what a fucking argument is? You're getting there, my friend. You're on the right track. I'm not getting in the flat Earth cult. No, sorry, I'm not going to be disrespectful. That's sophistry. It's wizardry if I start mocking them for thinking something that I find ridiculous. Space is water. I don't know what that means. That's fucking insane. If you can take a variety of snapshots through a telescope of another planet and see if it's rotating, that's one of the worst arguments I could possibly imagine. So it's like saying, does my dog have rabies? Well, I can see that dog that doesn't have rabies. This is a fucking nightmare. This is literally a nightmare trying to fucking disprove this thing. Well, if you look through your binoculars and see another dog without rabies, that means your dog doesn't have rabies. What in the fuck does that mean? You're in motion, keeps moving. Okay, Jason, if you are not in a medium that is moving, how does that apply? Let's say you see a river flying by you and you are in the air looking at the river because you're standing on the riverbank. Are you in motion because you can see a river in motion? Of course not. That's an insanely stupid argument. If the atmosphere is all moving with the Earth flying around at 1,100 miles an hour, and you are out of the atmosphere, which happens in low Earth orbit or the average Delta flight, how in the fuck are you still subject to being in that medium? That doesn't make any sense. Because you are moving when still first. That means absolutely nothing, and we both know it. Drag means nothing. Science can't prove the Earth moves. It literally can't, and this is fucking awful. If we hover over Earth, can we get to Australia faster? Guys, this is a nightmare. It's so fucking hard to prove. 1,100 miles per hour, but it still takes 24 hours to make one rotation. Well, I don't know. I haven't done the math on that. I really hope Owen can prove the Earth is round. Me too, Penny. Take an astronomy course at your local university. Now you're banned. I've obviously taken astronomy courses, and that's not an argument. Okay, another weird thing is that the sun is 400 times larger than the moon, but it's 400 times farther away, making it exact eclipse, and they're both circles. Circle is not sphere. As it waxes and wanes, doesn't the moon's shadow at least point to it being spherical? No, it does not. There's no way to do that. That's a two-dimensional image. There's going to be a lot of people just attacking me personally now. I don't give a fuck. I'm not a flat Earth person. The Earth is not flat. That's fucking psychotic. Is anyone else feeling a little nervous about this? Globe Earth, biggest line history. Good luck with your search, Owen. Is that really your argument? That if you don't understand cancer, that proves the fucking Earth is round? Come on, man! There's 3,556 people here, and no one has a fucking argument that the Earth is round. Dupay will use some wizardry on you and gatekeep. Right, that's why I need truth. Truth beats all wizardry. Someone please give me some fucking science that proves the Earth is round. And this is not a flat Earth channel. 95% of the people here believe the Earth is round. Please, please, God, someone give me an argument. Who looks for truth in a YouTube chat? Well, not you anymore, Larry. By the way, the only people named Larry are pedophiles and mailmen. I can't argue for moon phases without the moon being a sphere. You gotta be kidding me. I mean, is this public education? You can't land a plane on a spinning globe. Oh God, this is a fucking nightmare. I can't be a flat Earth person. I mean, I can't be a flat Earth person. There's zero proof that the Earth is spinning. Dude, literally there's none. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up here because this is so fucking depressing. It's mind blowing. Open up Google Earth. This conversation will be a lot more simple when everyone can see the current model and scale. Earth, it's 3D globe. You can move around. So your answer is Google Earth. That's the proof. And you guys are fine with that proof. You're like, oh, that's cool. That's all I need. If I do Google Earth, everything makes sense. Is there no math? Is there no fucking math? You gotta be fucking kidding me. You're a flat Earth person and just figuring out. No, I'm not a flat Earth person. That's insane. Google Earth. That's the answer. Google. You fucking children. The thing that's bothering me the most is how many people believe something that they've never thought about. That they don't, their arguments are literally like, well, look on Yahoo, idiot. I gotta go. This is fucking horrifying. Southern hemisphere constellations are different than northern. How can it be flat if what we see in the sky and the direction they move are different? Love ya. I still believe the Earth is round, so I'm sure that's a great argument. Can we please have something that won't have an answer? Like with the moon landing, there's so many mic drop arguments. How is that the only time in history that a country's went somewhere that other countries haven't followed? Why did technology go in reverse? How did they live feed from the moon with a 4-second delay when it's more than a 4-second delay right now on CNN across the country? There's a million examples. There's none of that here. And I don't feel comfortable getting my ass beaten in a fucking debate. Guys, I said I would debate this guy because I thought it was a no fucking brainer. When you're above the atmosphere, you're in orbit. You already had inertia from the rotation, and there's no longer air friction to slow you down, so you're orbiting around just like the moon is. That makes no sense, Dan. If you're going from west to east, let's say you're fighting the rotation, your inertia based on the your jets. So if you're going east to west, you have different inertia than west to east. Is that your argument? Is that your physics argument? You gotta be fucking kidding me, man. So if you're going west to east and you go same amount of gasoline and you have the same fucking inertia. So your argument is either that combustion rockets don't work in a vacuum because that's a problem, or you're wrong. Fuck! The Earth isn't flat. The Earth is not flat. This is fucking madness. Once you leave the surface of the Earth, you still maintain the velocity you had while on the surface because of inertia. You don't fly off because of gravity. Okay, so let's say you're flying to the moon or Mars. You can't increase velocity after you leave Earth's gravitational field, orbit. So the 17,000 miles an hour is the inertia they got from liftoff. You can't be fucking serious. These arguments work in your minds. So the 17,000 miles an hour that the NASA fucking dumb lie thing up there is going, do you think that they got that inertia from liftoff and that's all they could ever have? They couldn't get any more inertia for more rockets and more partying up there? Come on, dude. This is so fucking depressing. I can't be a flat Earth person. This is... It's Earth's magnetic field. Is that your new proof that the Earth is round? Guys, no one knows why the Earth is round. And no one knows why the Earth is round? No one knows? People say just inertia, the difference between speed and velocity. You guys really think that proves that the Earth is fucking round? Hang on. Owen, compass works flat. Owen, nobody can explain it if it's not true. Good night, bro. This can't be reality. Please comment why the Earth is round. Please, physicists, mathematicians. I really, really don't want to believe the Earth is flat, guys. You think I'm ostracized now? I've crossed every goddamn line there is. Can we please not do that to me? Can someone just please give me some ammo here? But if the Earth is flat, money won't matter because I will be alone in a little room, wondering what the point of any of it is. Why did we learn anything? Someone please help me disprove this bullshit. Fuck! This is so fucking depressing. I can't be a flat earth person. This is... I mean, I can't be a flat earth person. When you look at the solar system, there's 9 planets, right? According to Neil deGrasse Tyson. They're all spinning in the same direction. You know the odds of that? 2 to the 9th power, 1 in 512. That's very rare. And by the way, do not, during this conversation, do not say it was God's will. Because if you use God, you have to read the Bible. And the Bible does not depict the Earth as a spinning ball in a sea of nothing at all. Just please listen, because it's impossible. All right, next up on the solar system model, it's on a flat plane. Not just is the solar system a flat plane, the entire Milky Way galaxy is a flat plane. Want to talk about flat Earth? Oh, flat earthers, flat earthers. You're saying that after a big bang, even with the law of thermodynamics called entropy, which we'll get to in a second, somehow our galaxy ended up being a perfectly flat plane where all the planets spin in the same direction. The odds of that are less than winning the Mega Lotto every single day for thousands of years. Understand that. Now look at the moon. The moon is a perfect circle. The odds that happened after Big Bang and just chaos of atoms and particles and dust and rocks colliding is 0. The odds are literally 0. There's no force, there's no wind, there's no erosion, there's no water, there's no force acting upon that moon that would make it a perfect sphere. The odds that the spin of the moon is exactly the same speed as it rotates around the Earth, again, are 0. If it was 1/4 of 1 mile per hour different, it would slowly turn. The fact it doesn't, and there is 0 physics explanations with the model of gravity as we know it to explain why the moon, why its axis rotation is exactly matching it rotate around us so that we only see one side. It's impossible. It can't happen. It only happens on 2-dimensional objects. Seeing as you've only seen one side of the moon because of its miraculous rotation and its perfect circle, and the fact that the luminescence is the same across the whole thing, implies, I'm not stating this, it implies it's a 2-dimensional object. A lot more than it's a spinning sphere out of the chaos of the Big Bang. Okay? The size and weight of the moon, according to science, it is impossible for it to be rotating around our Earth. The way the moon was created, according to mainstream science, is that an object the size of Mars hit our Earth and created the moon. That's nonsense. We would have rings like Saturn. Where's all the dust? Where's all the debris? Where's everything? That all just disappeared? That makes no sense at all. Next up. The sun is 400 times bigger and miraculously 400 times farther away than the moon. And like 2 machine-cut quarters, they line up perfectly to make an eclipse. The odds of that are 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions times 1 in trillions. It's not possible. That the perfect circles in this world, which can't happen on the moon given the existing model, line up perfectly with something 400 times larger from a third factor, which is your fixed position on an Earth, that they claim is spinning 1,000 miles an hour. Okay, the shadow of the eclipse is 70 miles wide. There is no way to make a shadow smaller than the object. Of course, there are people that say umbra, because like goats, they've been trained to say that, but they cannot recreate an umbra on Earth. They only believe it because they've been indoctrinated to believe it since the time of their birth by people who want to remove their connection to God. Okay, next up, evolution. So we have something called the Big Bang, which is the ultimate chaotic event. What banged? Who banged it? Why did it bang? How did everything come from a fixed point? Don't even try and tackle that because it makes 0 sense. But here's something that you can easily think of and it disproves everything about mainstream science. The law of entropy is that matter and energy naturally go from order to chaos. If you break a glass, even after 1 billion years, the broken shards will not reform into the glass, because objects have a tendency towards entropy, towards dissolving, towards breaking apart. Whether it's empires or a broken glass, the longer you wait, the more the broken shards become sand. They get ground down, they will never go the other direction. So how do we have a human eyeball from a Big Bang? The Big Bang happens and it creates a never-ending waterfall, cascade, domino effect of atoms smashing against each other in an empty darkness for eternity. So given the law of entropy, that things go from order to chaos, how on earth do we have the structure of a human eyeball in which we can see light and then recreate the light in our minds as images that represent our physical reality? It contradicts to a point of laughable mockery. Okay, now understand that if anyone says, well, sexual selection, Big Bear, you know, over long periods of time, I used to believe this stuff too. I believed all of it. I loved astronomy. I minored in evolution in college. I loved thinking about how the environment would interact with a human being, increase their odds of procreation or decrease their odds of procreation, and certain genes would pass. Nonsense. You're telling me that that force that created the human eyeball, which is unbelievably complicated, that through a long process of light hitting cells and then becoming rods and cones, if that's from sexual selection, why does our skin burn in the sun? Why do I need an umbrella right now so that my skin doesn't become red and cancerous? Well, Big Bear, it's because you're from the north. Why don't I have hair on my body? Why would I die outside in 30-degree weather without a structure around me? If my people came from Northern Europe, which they did for so long, how come I didn't evolve to not die in the snow and then die in the sun? If sexual selection actually had an impact on us, like they say it did, if we can evolve to have the complexity of a human eyeball out of a Big Bang, even though that goes against entropy, why on earth have we evolved to not have skin that's resistant to the one constant in our life at all times, which is the sun and then the winter? It doesn't make any sense, right? So what is the point of all of this? Is this supposed to give you despair and fear? No, it's removing it. We were created. That glass that was broken was a glass because someone made it. So someone made us to have eyes to see, ears to hear, a mouth to taste, hands to touch, a woman to love, a child to hold, right? That is love. And so what's the purpose of life? Serving that which gave us all of it, God. And they want you to think that we are on a spinning ball in an infinite black, and every atom that just smashes together randomly eventually became your parents, who randomly fucked and are now silently watching NCIS in some long, weird, passive-aggressive game, and you're just here to randomly smash your genitals against someone. No fucking way, guys. That's despair. That's the world where you need medication to get out of bed. That's the world where you can be easily tricked because you have nothing to be grateful for or nothing to live for. When you know that your eyes of your children were created, that means whoever created it loves you. So serve that who loves you, which is your creator. There is no way that that moon just got this. The story is an endless serpent distracting you from God's love and making you sad and full of despair. And every time I point out one of these deceptions and people say, oh, I can't be with you on this one, man. It's too much stress. I'm removing the stress. You're made in love. Your soul matters. Your choices matter. God loves you. Why would God give you eyes that can see your wife holding a baby? That came out of chaos? No. Why would God make all these unbelievable nonsense things that everyone tries to explain away? None of the scientists have any cohesion whatsoever. You know, they just changed the time frame of the Big Bang by 1 billion years, and no one batted an eye because they are not walking with God. Have gratitude. When you have gratitude towards your Creator, and it's so simple. Just be thankful every day. Be thankful, and then when you're thankful, when you say thank you, God, God says no problem. God is everything, guys. This is created out of love and form, and when you see it, your life has more form and order and beauty and love. You can forgive. You can call out bullshit. You can get mad and not be scared that you're bubbling with rage. The purpose of your life is to have gratitude and purpose and serve God, that which made you. That science didn't give you eyes. Random fucking over 1 billion years didn't give you ears. God did. And that's logic. Do you think logic and math explains how our fucking solar system and galaxy is a straight flat plane? And even though we have the law of entropy, for some reason, the most complicated physical things that we can't imagine just came out of fucking? You're out of your mind. That is the illogic. Logic comes from a word, guys. Logos, logic. It's the same word, the word. God, form, natural law. It's all the same thing. You know what is real and what is not real. And when you know truth will set you free, work will set you free. Labor, truth, love, family, soil. That's what's real. Then you won't fall for these tricks. It's gonna sound crazy, but I was listening to John Lennon's Imagine, one of the worst songs ever made. Like, it's brilliant wizardry, but it's truly horrifying. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, but above us only sky, right? The way things work, the way humans work, the way consciousness works, the way everything works, is you have to replace things with things. So we are a people that looks up to God, and we pray. And we look up and we can't believe the majesty of the clouds, and we think about heaven and just the enormity and the beauty of it. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us only sky. So you have all these wizards, these high-level wizards, and they'll phrase it in ways that'll blow your fucking mind. Where they're like, this blew my mind when someone said that there's more galaxies in the universe than grains of sand on all the beaches in the world. So you think a galaxy is full of solar systems that are full of planets. I mean, even if you have a bunch of planets with nothing on there, it's like the odds that there's another planet like us or another planet like, it could be anything, right? In your mind now, it goes infinite. It goes, anything you can imagine is there. All the grains of sand in all the beaches. There's more galaxies than that. But it's also completely void of everything. Like the space between it's like 1 light year is the distance that light travels in a year. That's 186,000 miles a second. So a full year is a distance that we cannot comprehend. That is the emptiness. That is an emptiness that you can't wrap your mind around. And space is completely empty. It has no atmosphere, it has nothing. It is the absence of everything. So what does it do simultaneously? What is this generation lost in space with no time left to start again? I mean, it's in the songs. We look up and we see complete emptiness. Like we are a speck. We are nothing. We are a ball spinning with no direction in a sea of emptiness that we can't possibly conceive of. Nothing is there. But simultaneously, anything you can possibly imagine is up there as well. And so to bridge that gap between science fiction and reality, which is what science attempts to do. Science is wrong more than fucking anything. Watch any movie from the 90s or anything where they're just referencing anything scientific. They were wrong about fucking everything. So to bridge that, you had to put a human being up there. You had to blow people's fucking minds. You had to merge those two ideas, right? So you have the ultimate wizard spell. Infinite emptiness, infinite possibilities, right? Took the action of looking up and seeing God, and we don't see God up anymore. We see empty space coupled with infinite possibilities. It's the ultimate wizard spell. You put it in the same place people used to look at God with, right? You used to look at stars to align yourself, like where you were. You looked at the moon to see, like, was it harvest moon? Like, are we planting right now? Like, how's the tides? It helped you orient yourself. And you focused on the earth and your family and your surroundings. And you, it gets, guys, I'm right about this. It's brilliant and evil. Okay, we're thinking about terraforming Mars. Just think, what does that do to a population? Okay, so people are now like, life on Mars. Okay, we skipped all over, the moon is, no one talks about the moon. By the way, the Mars is a red version of the moon. It's just as empty. There's no atmosphere. It's way farther, way harder to get to, apparently. It's just red, and it's full of dust, and nothing's there at all. But yet now everyone's like, gotta get to Mars, right? So people are like, okay, we can terraform Mars. We can alter the atmosphere. No one's doing that to fucking Greenland. No one does that to fucking Alberta. You know how much land on Earth? Earth is designed. Earth is perfect for human life. The amount of oxygen and carbon, all that. What are we saying? We are killing our Earth. We are killing it, and us being here is ruining our mother. We are carbon emissions. This will be uninhabitable, so we will have to go to Mars. If you think Earth, like we could detonate all the fucking atomic bombs we've ever made, it would be a utopia compared to anything you could possibly do to Mars. Mars is hostile to all life. Mars, you can't take one breath without instant death. Mars is not capable of having any human life on it without, even theoretically, if it's even possible, an unimaginable amount of technology and engineering to keep you alive as you're in this horror of a landscape. We're like, our temperature may go up 1 degree in the world, in the sea level, and we must go to Mars, and that's a dead end. Our nearest star, Alpha Centauri, is what, 2 light years? You can't comprehend that distance. If you go the speed of fucking light, it takes 2 years to get there. So what, you go there, it takes you 2 years. But when you go the speed of light, according to Einstein's theory of relativity, time passes way faster everywhere outside. So if you travel the speed of light for 2 years, according to Einstein, it might be a conspiracy theorist, but the rest of the world would age like 30 years, right? So how in the fuck would you possibly even go to our closest star that most likely has absolutely no planets that can possibly have life, right? We have a giant Earth, and we can do amazing things here, and it's designed for life, but yet we're already not looking at it. We're done with it. We've ruined her. We've raped and murdered and sacrificed. And now when we look up, we don't see God in the heavens just saying, one day you'll get here, be a good person. You look down, you don't see hell, you don't see Jimmy Savile, all the people that fucked up that are now burning in hell. No, you see like the mantle and the nickel core and the blah, blah, blah. They took away our connection to everything. And they replaced it with nonsense. Infinite vastness and infinite possibilities, and none of it you can ever accomplish. That's the ultimate. It's like, it's perfect and evil as fuck. Just believe. Do you question science? Do you question science? How the fuck would you make Mars livable? Why haven't we tried to make the moon livable? And why don't we focus on the Earth that's unbelievably livable? We're just so enamored with these fucking wizard priests that don't know shit about science. I know more about science offhand than some of these wizard priests. It's like, they'll just try and blow your mind with like things that you can't imagine. It's like, on Venus, the atmosphere is so dense that 2-mile-an-hour wind would knock you right off your feet because of all the density of the atmosphere. And it gets 400 degrees, and it's like, who gives a fuck? We're not going. We're not living there. It's impossible to go there. We can't get back to the fucking moon, apparently. We never went to the moon, guys. We never went to the moon. And there's a reason these lies exist. It's to keep people, it's to keep their eyes and that shit, that just fucking nonsense. Infinite emptiness, infinite nihilism. The amount of empty, just random, hopeless, black, coupled with anything you can imagine. And then you couple that with the fact that all evidence says that we never went to the moon and that NASA just endlessly lies. It was started by an SS Nazi who was best friends with Walt Disney. They said they no longer have the technology. They erased all the tapes and no other countries ever went to the moon. How can you believe that? How can you live in a world where you aren't skeptical enough, or you're like so just, you just have to fucking fit in? Are you scared? Like, what is it? Everything isn't a lie. Yeah, we faked the fucking moon landing. So what? That's a real keyboard. This is a real fucking White Claw spritzer. It's freeing. It makes you realize that, like, that cognitive dissonance that people feel all the time and can't put their finger on it and just get angry at dumb shit. And it's like, just let it go. I don't know.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Launch director on countdown 1. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
Falcon Heavy is configured for flight.
T-minus 15, stand by for terminal count.
SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
10, 9, 8.
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Off. Go Falcon Heavy.
Director on countdown 1. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
30 seconds.
Launch director on countdown 1. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
Seconds.
Launch director on countdown 1. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
30 seconds.
Launch director on countdown 1. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
Flight booster ignition.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch. SpaceX Falcon Heavy, go for launch. Falcon Heavy, go for launch.
North American accounts of the giant skeletons that were found in the Ohio and Pennsylvania Valley. I'm talking everything from 10 to 12 foot tall guys found in copper armor. And the more I investigated, I found out it was a worldwide situation where we're talking some really big skeletons, all the way up to 36 feet tall.
If we only had basketball then, huh?
Well, I can tell you this, when some of these guys, some of the British giants, for instance, one guy specifically, listen to this, a guy by the name of William Joyce in the late 1800s, he could lift a ton dead weight, in other words, 2,000 pounds. And that you're only talking about a guy that was 8 feet tall. So I think the situation that most people find in history is there are too many question marks. And when you're looking at the temples of the world, and you're looking at all of the, what would you say, the answers that are out there, but seemingly are, swept under the rug, I think it becomes apparent that for some reason, someone doesn't want the issue of giants brought around. Also in the book, I have a picture of a 12'2" Irish mummy. And it's fascinating because, later in the show we can get into the mummy issue, but the point that's fascinating is if you take guys that are all the way up to 36 feet tall, 20 feet tall, the Emperor of China had two 15-foot guards. Charlemagne himself was surrounded by rather large individuals. We have a Roman emperor named Maximinius who was a giant himself. We're talking about people that are, we're talking about people with big egos, big appetites, and incredible strength. We're not talking about the medical situation that you see sometimes on the History Channel where they show giants as being these guys that don't live very long. On the website, I even show some of the Incan kings, I-N-C-A-N, Inca, from the Inca Empire, basically in the museums of Peru, that have 4 to 5 times the cranial mass of a standard human skull. And when you begin to dig, as I began digging over 30 years ago, you can find out that the reports of newspapers in America, of newspapers around the world. Interestingly enough, after I did the last show with Art, somebody went on the website and they sent me from Eastern Europe, they've already sponsored I guess you'd say an undertaking to go into some of the caves where they found a whole, basically, cavern of giant skeletons. Basically, interestingly enough, too, is that when you look at this, you see that there is a very, very, how should I say, skittish archaeological base out there that doesn't even want to deal with this.
And here's the interesting part. Here is the interesting part about all this. The history books that you read when you were in high school, when you were in middle school, were written by historians who read from these historical works, various historical works, and they just picked and chose what they wanted to present. So they read something like this here. A brief description of the land of Peru, 1595. Here we go. There were once giants here, and natives say they don't know from hence they came. Their houses were 3 leagues below the anchorage, made of 2 gables with very large beams. Now, actually what they're showing in the scene here, what they were is actually 30-foot tall giants that were basically rotting, that they found in around the 1600s when they conquered the Incas. Rotting corpses of giants that were 30 foot tall that they ended up burning and incinerating, just destroying them, because they were used as idol worship in a cave. So this is in a cave, the setting is a cave, and they were doing human sacrifice unto these dead gods. This is from an Augustinian monk. Okay, so what this guy is doing is he's retelling what these people who lived in Peru, these Indians from that region, have a story that was passed down to them about giants. Some of the antediluvian giants, from what I understand, that came to the land and basically took over. They're about 15 foot tall. They took over and they were killing off some of the people. And when they came over, they had no women. It was just all male Nephilim giant offspring. And what they would do is they would steal the women from the Indians. What ended up happening, and this is what's being said here, a young, handsome man in the sky took out a sword and threw a lightning bolt down on these giant Nephilim offspring and killed them, incinerated them. So what we're talking about here is likely an angel of God. You know, usually angels of God are considered to be very handsome looking men. You know, with a sword, basically threw a lightning bolt at them and destroyed them all. And this is the story. And this is not from the Bible. This isn't from the Book of Enoch or Book of Jubilees. This is a story from Indians in Peru. So we have the Catholic Church, Rome, the Vatican, burying the Book of Enoch. We have the Book of Jasher and Jubilees, which also was, essentially kicked out as being pseudepigraphical or basically erroneous, falsely ascribed texts. These books are critical to understanding Genesis 6, right? But the church got rid of these books. The church, we're talking Rome here, gets rid of all these giant skeleton bones. And now they're talking about some aliens coming to be a part of society, and that aliens could get saved. We know that this Vatican is working with the Nephilim behind the scenes. It's pretty obvious. Back around 1910, the Arizona Gazette published a story about finding Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon, that 2 Smithsonian workers had found them. And after this was published, not too long later, the Smithsonian denied that these 2 men worked for the Smithsonian, that they had uncovered anything. And what's so interesting about it is around 100 years later, the Smithsonian actually admitted that these men worked for them in a article they published on their own website. So for 100 years they denied that these men worked for them, and then they admitted it 100 years later in 2013. Okay, so they actually are admitting that these 2 men did work for them, and they had actually lied for 100 years about them working for them. These men published that there were Egyptian artifacts found in the Grand Canyon. What's really interesting about that is there's actually an area in the north part of the Grand Canyon which are named after Egyptian names that are off limits to all people. Even low-level government employees can't go to these areas. And these are likely where they actually found these artifacts, which of course the public cannot see, the public cannot know about. It's just yet another Smithsonian cover-up. It's sort of interesting, right? Maybe because there was a lot of evidence coming out that they indeed did work for them. There was a man that was basically uncovering it, David Hatcher Childress, and so much information had come out that they actually had to admit that the man worked for them. So this is basically their way of doing PR in case too much comes out and it explodes in their face. And they say, well, we did admit that he worked for us, 100 years after they had lied for 100 years, right? Then we have the fact that there are about 1,000 different newspaper articles from the 18 and 1900s that talk about excavations of giant skeletons. We have this one here from 1904 in the St. Paul Globe. I mean, we can just keep clicking here. Giant skeletons found. The first one I showed you was 11 foot tall. This one's 12 feet in length. New York Times, 1902. The other one was 1904. Skeleton 7 feet long in Ohio. Published on 1885 in the New York Times. Yet another New York Times one here in 1908. Found in a cave in Mexico. Boston. 200 skeletons found, and above 8 feet in height. So a lot of these have just mysteriously disappeared. Often it's the Smithsonian, sometimes it's the Vatican that's involved. Sometimes the FBI has even come in when certain things have been dug up, from what I've heard. If it gets out, if the information gets out that they found, like some farmer found some body that's 8 foot or 9 foot tall, some skeleton, and if he tells the wrong people, next thing you know, a lot of people come, FBI, or I guess you would say in black suits, and remove the excavated skeleton, and you never hear about it again. 15 to 20 skeletons in Larteh Lake in Natchez, it looks like Mississippi there. Mexico, 16 giants are dug up by workmen. Of course, we're talking also England. King Arthur might have also been a giant from what I saw in just a recent video. King Arthur's body was dug up. They found a cross, and they found a large coffin with a person of exceptional size. I think he was like 8 or 9 feet tall, and they think it might have been the body of King Arthur. Indian skeletons found under Oklahoma Mound. Treasured finds, large femur indicating its owner must have been at least 9 foot tall. And there's thousands of these newspaper clippings that, and actually it's very interesting because it seems like Google's, as you know of Google's recent censorship, and of course Snopes, to basically sift through information online and basically block it so you don't get to see fake news, as they call it. Right? So you can't see alternative viewpoints on history. They're already starting to block it. I had to do sort of a different search to get this. If I just put in newspaper giants, it'll be like New York Giants, because they're already changing the search results. They're already making it so you can't find information on topics. Of course, they had that Google Owl that was recently released, where majority opinion basically snuffs out minority opinion or alternative viewpoints. So that's what they're doing. They're already trying to basically shield you from any information that contradicts what the elite want you to believe. Okay? So there's thousands of these newspaper clippings. I highly recommend you go around and save them. Save the images you find, because they might not be there much longer, considering how Google's been trying to censor everything. I would highly recommend start saving information you find online, even this video here, because you never know how long this information is going to be out there when you have people who don't want you to know about it. Because you don't know how long this information is going to be around in the future, with the internet being more and more controlled. Beach giant skulls unearthed by WPA workers near Victoria. The San Antonio Press. Let's see what we have here. I don't know how big this is. Okay, here we go. This is a little bit better. Human body bones unearthed. Let's see, how big? They claim it's from 40,000 years ago. I can't see the size. It doesn't say the size. Offhand, I don't see it. So, it says it found several giant skeletons there. Old graves, skeletons of giant warriors unearthed in France. Claims to be from 25,000 years ago. There was also a giant skeleton that was basically on display and moved around in England. That was about 12 foot tall, that mysteriously disappeared on a train ride back to London. This stuff seems to happen a lot. A lot of these giant skeletons mysteriously disappear just out of nowhere. And we have a lot of stories about the Vatican telling them to break up and destroy these bones. All these seem to be all correlating quite well. Even the American Indians with their stories about the red-haired giants, all these stories seem to correlate so perfectly. You might think it's actually history. You know what I mean? History that we're not allowed to know about, of course. That's kind of the idea. And as you can see, there's tons of newspaper clippings. There is about 1,000 of them, literally telling you about skeletons being unearthed. Of course, strangely, all these skeletons, not all of them, but so many of them, there's still fragments, you know, probably I don't know how many fragments out there, but probably under 100 you can find of various, like, femur bones and thumb bones and skulls and stuff that are still around, but miraculously the thousands upon thousands that were excavated just disappear. It's just so strange how often it's the Smithsonian or the Vatican or someone within this realm trying to destroy them or get rid of them or hide them, or in the case of recent, maybe take them so they can get DNA samples and perhaps bring back the Nephilim, maybe as a super soldier. Who knows, right? Skeleton of prehistoric Irish giant. Of course, this relates to the King Arthur and Merlin the Magician. And Merlin the Magician actually hired giants from Ireland to build Stonehenge. Now, it's very interesting. This recent Transformers movie has Merlin. It actually has King Arthur, Merlin dealing with the Transformers. I think the Transformers is, in essence, trying to mirror back to the fallen angels and the Nephilim. It seems to be sort of the story about them, and they just use these Transformers as sort of a subjugate for it. You have Merlin actually going to a spacecraft that was crashed and talking to one of these Transformers and asking them to help him to fight the hordes that were attacking Camelot, and they were also part of the story. So it's sort of interesting that in the real legends of Merlin and Camelot and King Arthur, and you never hear about this in the Disney versions and all the Hollywood versions of King Arthur. Of course, you never heard about this, did you? Until now, right? This is the kind of stuff they don't want you to know about. Okay, fine skeleton, 10 feet tall. A lot of them are usually between 7 foot and 12 foot tall. You've heard of these dwarfs, you know, with Lord of the Rings, right? And they always seem to be Scottish or Irish. You ever notice that? Well, a lot of these giants that helped out with building Stonehenge were very, very stocky. They may have been short compared to other giants. They were 7 foot tall, but they were very, very stocky, very thick boned. Sort of made me think of dwarfs. And maybe dwarfs compared to other giants, not dwarfs compared to us. They were taller than us, but they were very thick and stocky. Perhaps they were the ones that were very, very strong and could pick up such stones at Stonehenge and build it. You can see there's like so many of these articles, but of course if you go to Snopes, it's all fake. Relics of mound builders, thousands of years old, skeletons of gigantic men. See, also I was watching a video, one of these videos while I was doing research, and I saw a comment on it about Google Earth and how they've actually went through and deleted certain things on Google Earth that are strange. Let's just put it that way. Things that shouldn't be there. If there's perhaps a hidden history we're not supposed to know about, right? So back in 2013, they actually went through Google Earth and actually deleted certain things within the ocean. And this guy said before the whole update, he went through and tried to map out all the different, strange anomalies in the ocean that he found, strange formations that seemed to be very man-made, or perhaps, intelligently made. Let's just put it that way, where they had 90-degree angles, perfect lines, sort of the layout of a city. From what he said there was what appeared to be buildings underwater, layouts of cities. He actually mapped out several very large cities, or appear to be cities, something intelligently made, perhaps by humans, perhaps by these offspring of the fallen angels, the Nephilim, these giants. Perhaps they were made by these giants, we don't know. But it was all deleted. So, there's obviously a lot of stuff that's being unearthed, a lot of stuff being discovered that points to a cover-up. I don't think there's enough videos made about this topic, to be honest. I think we're just starting to see a lot more evidence come out.
Scripture says that there were giants on the earth before the flood and after. Oh, how did they survive the flood? They didn't survive the flood, but the Watchers came and did their thing again.
When they fell, then they're trapped in this domain of earthly physical realm, I guess. And you're saying they fell after, is what you're saying.
It was a big mistake for them. I mean, they came down and they shed the heavenly body to take on bodies of flesh. When they did that, that was a big mistake, because the Father wasn't interested in hearing their petition anymore. Now, when you talk about the Nephilim, a lot of people say, and I've had Pentecostals say to me, you can't really raise that issue because we don't believe Genesis 6:1 refers to fallen watchers. But if you look at the passage in 1 Corinthians 11, when Paul's talking about this, he's talking about women having their head covered, right? Have your head covered when you pray or prophesy in church. Why? Because of the angels. What is he talking about? Because of the angels. Because, the Hebrew text is very clear that the hair is the glory of a woman. Her hair is her glory. And that the hair is what tempted these fallen watchers. So Paul is making an oblique reference in 1 Corinthians 11 to cover your head so that you don't tempt the angels. Right? Cover your hair so you don't.
Interesting. I didn't even know it was the hair allegedly that tempted them. But I do know that I think it's the Book of Jubilees. If you read it, there's a section that's just like Genesis 6, but it actually has a couple extra lines in it. Everything's verbatim other than a couple extra lines. And if you read those extra lines in the Book of Jubilees, it makes it very clear. It's probably talking about angels.
Yeah,
so it makes it a lot more clear.
Actually, the Book of Jude quotes directly from the Book of Enoch, and he's talking about the angels being locked away and chained up because of their fall. Peter makes a reference to it in 2 Peter, and the Book of Enoch is explicit. I mean, you have 20 chapters on the fall of the Watchers and what they did. The Book of the Giants, which is also a Dead Sea Scroll, talks about this, references Gilgamesh, who was Nephilim. And we also know in the book of 1st and 2nd Kings, we have this reference to Goliath Gath, Goliath, right? Goliath Gath, Goliath, who was a giant. Og of Bashan was a giant. And if you read the book of Sirach, the Wisdom of Sirach, which is an apocryphal book, but which was included in the 1256 canon of the Catholic Church, the 1560 Geneva, the 1611 KJV included this book of Sirach. He refers to Goliath Gath, Goliath, as Raphaim.
Raphaim, right?
Yeah, and so Raphaim you find all through the book of Isaiah. And in fact, in the Et Sefer, we took out the translation and put in Raphael. And there's record in the United States, too. The burial grounds that are up in Indiana and Illinois, there were burial grounds that they have record of giants there. And again, all the tribes that are based along the St. Lawrence Waterway and into the Great Lakes all have stories of giants.
I live in Indiana. I'm in Indiana right now, so.
Are you? Yeah. So you know what I mean, right? Yeah, so so when you see this record, I mean, there is a huge record. Now, there's a site that was found off the coast of Japan. I don't remember the name of it exactly right now, but it's underwater. It's an underwater temple, and you see there are pictures of these scuba divers going through it. And when you see this site, it's very clear that they were the steps of giants. I mean, they're huge. These steps are huge. Yeah, these guys are big and they're bulked, right?
And
so you're talking
like 10 or 20 times as much or something.
Yeah.
More sometimes. I don't know what the weight differential is, but it's a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, you could be talking a 3,500 pound guy.
Oh,
right?
yeah, right.
And so now you think about this for a minute. So when David cuts off the head of Goliath, right? Now let's just say that he's as big as they claimed he was, about 12 or 13 feet tall. So this is a big guy. He's probably 3,000 pounds. His head is probably this big, right?
Oh, yeah. That was another thing within these historical books. See, that's what's so funny. These secular historians today, they call all the stuff that they see in ancient literature as myth. All these stories, and in these historical works that were from like the 1500s, it talks about them putting the sword in through the eye socket on a skull and it going all the way in to the back of the skull. They would find skulls that big.
Right.
With a sword. We're talking a sword, sticking it through the eye socket of the skull all the way to the back of the skull, and the whole hand goes in. His whole hand, the whole sword goes in all the way. That's how big some of the skulls were they found. You know?
Yeah, I know, but it's reprehensible, I think, when you start altering the historic record. I mean, live with what you find, right? And if you can't live with what you find, then you shouldn't be in the historical business. And let the truth prevail. Let the record show what it's going to show. And so there is plenty of record about the giants. And so we talk about the giants. I was just going to say with Goliath Gath, right? Remember where the Messiah was crucified. Remember, he was crucified at the place of the skull, right? Called Golgotha, right?
Right.
Now, the real Hebrew name for Goliath is Goliath Gath, Goliath Gatha, Golgotha, Goliath Gatha. So he was crucified at the place of the skull. That is the place where David had buried the skull of Goliath.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I heard something about that before. So in a sense, it's like the prophecy being fulfilled from Genesis, I think 3.
But when we talk about the 66 books, right, we have to start taking a look at what happened. Why did these people start saying that book has to go, this book has to go, that book has to go? And you had a very robust debate. But when you talk about the New Testament, it was so crazy how the New Testament formed, because it formed kind of through osmosis. It's like, okay, well, who's using what here? And so it turned out that, you had this guy Marcion, and Marcion was, he was so dangerous to everything.
Right, he was a very dangerous heretic.
Yeah, and he created this idea of an 11-book New Testament, right? 10 epistles of Paul and the Gospel of Luke.
He rejected the Old Testament, right? Wasn't he the one who rejected the Old Testament?
Mm-hmm. Rejected the Old Testament.
He said the God of the Old Testament was basically the devil, and the God of the New Testament was a completely different God. And he actually got a lot of people to follow him.
Well, that following is going on today. There are people who preach, like Zechariah Sitchin, who didn't preach it, but he taught it in his text, that there was an evil creator God who created the earth, whose name was Yah. And this evil creator God is living down in Antarctica, imprisoned, and he's mean and angry and jealous and a killer. And that the real God, who they don't want to disclose his name, but who in the dark societies will tell you is Lucifer, is the God who is, and some people say Lucifer, some people say it's a woman, right? That is the God over this creator God who created the earth.
You're talking about Kabbalah, Freemasonry. That's what it sounds like you're talking about here.
But it's also the doctrine of Marcion. It's also the doctrine of the tainted doctrine of the Sumerians.
Hey, what are we seeing in society? That's exactly what we're seeing right now, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the thing is, look, I'm a big lover of women. I believe that women are, it's like my friend Ken Hutcherson used to say, God took the rib from Adam and made prime rib, right? Right. And that's one way of looking at it. I think it's a great way of looking at it.
You could look at it that way.
Yeah, but the thing is, this out of placeness that is handed to women now, is saying you should be in the place of men. You should overthrow your husband. You should overthrow the man's place in the workplace. You should overthrow the man's place in the square. What does it do? What does it bring to women? Does it bring happiness? Does it bring? I think that there is an innate contentedness that is in a woman, just like an innate contentedness in a man. A man wants to be a husband and a father. I think more than he wants to be a successful contractor or more than he wants to be a successful businessman. I think the husband wants to be, first of all, a good dad and a great husband. And I think for a lot of women, it's the same thing. They want to be a great wife and they want to be a great mother. There's a word in the scripture that appears over and over. It's called teraphim, right? Rachel escapes, when Rachel and Leah leave with Jacob, they leave Laban's household, they're fleeing, right? And then he comes after him and says, hey, somebody stole my teraphim. Who stole my teraphim? And Rachel had his teraphim in the camel furniture, right? What are those big bamboo things that sit on top of the camel? She had him in the camel furniture, okay? And Jacob is saying, whoever stole it gets put to death, but it's his beloved Rachel who stole it. Well, what is the teraphim? Well, the teraphim is described in the book of Jasher, also in the Targum, and it's also referenced elsewhere in Scripture. The teraphim was the head of a person, a human being who had been sacrificed, who was an adult male, over 20 years old, firstborn. They would put a gold coin in his mouth, sew his lips shut, sew his eyes shut, and then they would hang the head in their tent and talk to it.
What?
They would, yes.
I didn't know about this.
Oh, yes, the teraphim. Now, if
so
you're
saying
reading
it wasn't an idol, it was a literal head of a person.
It was the head of a person.
Was it his firstborn son?
No, it wasn't. It'd be somebody else's, right? Somebody else's firstborn son.
Oh, that's some messed up stuff, man.
Yeah, totally messed up, right?
Talking to it too? That's really weird.
Necromancy. Okay, so when you see this, so when you're reading, if you read in Kings, right? There's a point where David's trying to get away from Saul. So he runs up into Michal's bedroom and he's like, I got to get out of here. He's going to kill me. So she says, okay, great. Let's tie the sheets together. Out the window you go and, get out of here. And then I'll make like you're still here. So she took the teraphim and put it in the bed with the goat skin. Now, if that was a little tiny silver idol, how's a little tiny silver idol going to convince anybody that David's there? But if it's a human head...
I just read over that. I just totally forgot about that, man.
Yeah.
I remember about going down, but I don't remember. I remember them putting something in the window or something, right?
Yeah. Teraphim. She put a teraphim and
it was a head.
Okay. And she had this head in her room.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I don't want no head in my room.
Doesn't that creep you out?
So we're just going to look at a couple of simple facts to show why dinosaurs could not have existed, right? This is an elephant. Eats a plant-based diet and on average weighs about 6 tons, right? Each elephant that's born must eat for approximately 18 hours per day, every single day, for the rest of its life in order for it to stay alive. That's 18 hours per day it spends eating. This is a brontosaurus. Also eats a plant-based diet and weighs up to 10 times more than an elephant. In order for it to have survived, it would have needed to eat for a minimum of 180 hours per day just to survive. Alright, believe it or not, even in those days there was only 24 hours per day.
Hey, Colin, you were at the museum, we're going to debunk it. Look at this. That's not bone. That's part of first. That was rebonded. Pretty impressive. But again. Shit. It's not bone.
Close up on that ring. What is going on there?
That's a ring of my profession. You don't know nothing about that.
Okay, can we get a close up on that area?
You don't know nothing about
what
that.
is?
of March 5 BC, this record appeared in the astronomy records of the Book of the Han Dynasty. And translated into English, it reads, in the second month of the second year of Yanping, the comet was out of Altair. Altair is a star. This comet came out of a star and it lasted for more than 70 days. And it is said comets appear to signify the old being replaced by the new. Altair, the sun, the moon and the 5 stars are in movement to signify the beginning of a new epoch, the beginning of a new year, a new month and a new day. This is dated 9th of March 5 BC. And the Chinese astronomers are saying on the 9th of March 5 BC, this comet seemingly appeared out of this star. And it lasted for more than 70 days. The appearance of this comet undoubtedly symbolizes change, they said. The extended appearance of the comet indicates that this is of great importance, and there's the reference on the screen.
All right, so what I wanted to say real quick is these Chinese astronomers, or actually you might say astrologers, I don't know how you would want to look at this. These guys were trained, okay? They were trained in a very similar discipline to the Magi who went to see the birth of the God, man, Jesus. All right, so the Magi of the East, who were taught by Daniel, had a certain skill set. They understood how to interpret the sky, interpret the stars. And the same is the case with these Chinese astronomers that would interpret the meanings of what they see in the heavens. And this is just the beginning. That's just one. There's like about, I think, 3 of these. And it's just amazing what they came up with from just reading the stars while being in China about something happening on Earth. And just check this out. It's pretty crazy.
The Bible says the wise men who came to visit Jesus Christ, they said, we've seen his star in the east and we've come to worship him. The wise men thought it was a star. The Chinese astronomers, who knew nothing about this, thought it was a comet. To them it looked like a comet. To the wise men it looked like a star. This record is dated 31 AD, and it's in the history of the latter Han Dynasty, and it says, summer, 4th month of the year on the day of Renwu, the imperial edict reads, yin and yang have mistakenly switched, and the sun and the moon were eclipsed. The sins of all the people are now on one man. Pardon is proclaimed to all under heaven. They knew nothing about Jesus, and this is dated 31 AD.
Their science, what they've been taught on how to interpret the stars, told them specifically what was happening in the heavens, which directly correlated to physical, historical events that were actually occurring over in the East. All right, so, and that's actually not the only one. There's even another one, okay? He's going to go show another one. And these are astronomical record readings, okay? I guess you could say it's astrology or whatever you want to call it, but apparently they had a certain discipline of how to interpret the heavens, which I don't think is the same as astrology. It's not even close, because from what I could see with astrology, it's just a bunch of hogwash. Okay? I'm sorry, but that's just how I look at it. And these guys were interpreting the sky and understanding what certain patterns were in the sky and what they meant in what was going on Earth. Okay? And you had the same thing happening with how Daniel taught certain people in Egypt how to interpret the heavens. And you see that the Chinese also had this same skill set. So these guys had a different type of skill set to interpret the heavens, and they were interpreting what was happening on Earth without even knowing it. Otherwise, you see what I mean? So you have all this obscured history that no one knows about. And I always find it intriguing how they've tried to replace actual history with ideology. Ideology that's so-called science, where they literally contradict history, historical records. And of course they neglect to somehow harmonize the two. If you're a person really looking into true science, you want to take real science, you want to take historical data, you want to take all the evidences you have and make a harmonized paradigm, something that makes sense, okay, of all that you have. But if you have a science that completely contradicts what's in historical books, you're going to just say that all these people are making it up? Alexander the Great was making it up when he said he saw dragons in India? A real leader of a country is making up a historical record of seeing dragons in a country because it contradicts your ideology that says dragons died off or dinosaurs died off millions and millions of years ago. Somebody's wrong there. Now, of course, I'm going to believe Alexander the Great that he's not lying. Why would he lie? Why would he make up a fairy tale while he's writing a historical book? Does that make a lot of sense? You think, if you take a certain sort of leader, they're going to just make up fairy tales and everybody's just going to believe it? I don't think so. That's just kind of my viewpoint on that.
An eclipse of the sun, unexpectedly, meant that the sins of people were pardoned and had been placed on one man. That's amazing, isn't it? And then it goes on to say the eclipse on the day of Gui Hai, man from heaven died.
How did they know that? How does they know that? Now, of course, I didn't even get into fully what was going on with this whole altar of heaven, this Shangdi. 2,000 years of history, but if you go look into that more, they would do a sacrifice in China as a border sacrifice unto Shangdi, the Lord of Heaven, at a certain time every year. Now, this is very similar to what Noah did when the ark settled. He got out. He did a sacrifice, a border sacrifice, unto the God of Heaven for thanks. And this is literally what the Chinese were doing for 2,000 years. Okay, and they actually have paraphrased verses from the Old Testament in their records, historical records.
Now, there is also a song found in the collected statutes of the Ming Dynasty. I am not even going to attempt to try to read the Wenyan Wen. Lulu is able to do it, so let's.
露露可以为大家念出来。这边这个歌谣他说：“鱼袭洪荒之初兮，浑蒙；五行未遇兮，两曜未明。其中挺立兮，有无容身。神皇出狱兮，始判浊清。理天理地人兮。”
You, O spiritual sovereign, came forth in your sovereignty and first did separate the impure from the pure. Notice the order. You make heaven, you make earth, you make man. All things became alive with reproducing power.
And as you can see here in the Old Testament, this is exactly what it correlates with. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form, void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Right here, you have three things that completely correlate to this. I back it up to the original. Without form, it says dark here, and it says chaos. Chaos is where we get the word void. Some translations of the word void is chaos. You have dark here, or darkness. Now, what's really interesting about this is this Chinese song that was from the Ming Dynasty was written 1,000 years before Genesis was written. So this Chinese, I guess you would say, saying here is actually 1,000 years older than Moses' translation of Genesis, which indicates that they actually have probably a very similar source. So in reality, it probably was from the book of Noah. Noah actually had a book as well. We have fragments of it. And probably this text here is from maybe something similar to the book of Noah or something. And in reality, the Chinese history starts right after the Tower of Babel. Okay, the Tower of Babel was about 2250 BC, all right, which is about the time when Chinese history started. Okay, and it's very interesting that they have proverbs and verses that directly correlate to very similar texts in the Old Testament. So I just wanted to point that out. So clearly, the first 2,000 years of Chinese history was worshiping the same God Noah was worshiping. All right? So this, but of course, no one knows this. Just like with the India video I did, no one knows how the Apostle Thomas completely transformed part of India, particularly the south, which also sort of moved through the whole country because they completely changed their gods in their Vedas. They have two different Vedas. They have a Sanskrit Veda, and they have another Veda where it's different aged Vedas. They completely say different stuff. If you go look at it, they had 33 gods they completely abandoned and have completely new gods. Okay, and then there was a rewriting of history in the 1900s via certain, you have to go check out my video. I go through it. The way to hide the truth is to rewrite history, to ignore history, to obscure history, to laugh at history, to say it's all fables and fairy tales. And why would all these people who are leaders of countries, would you expect a historian today to write fairy tales and just, he's a revered historian in society and he's going to write fairy tales and try to convince you to believe them? Is he going to write how he saw a purple dragon on his doorstep? No, he's not. Okay, he's a historian. He's going to write historical matters, right? So if you have a historian that's revered from the ancient past telling you that there was giant people and dragons, you don't just say, well, this is all the myths of the people of that time. It's a historian writing actual stuff about Alexander the Great literally going to India and seeing dragons pull chariots. You just don't want to believe it because you don't believe dragons exist because you have an ideology that tells you they died off millions of years ago. So, I mean, it's stuff like this that just amazes me. People ignore history. History books say certain things. They just say, oh, that's a lie. That's not true. I don't care if he was a historian. I don't care if he was, you know, some revered historian. Who cares what they say? The truth is really what we know today. We know everything today. We're super smart.
Incredible. Whew. Joshua, explain what we have here.
We have two pieces of sulfur or brimstone, which we found at Gomorrah.
This is pretty big.
It is.
It does seem to be a lot of people that think that this is the place of Gomorrah, down by the Dead Sea, which is over there. And looking at these straight lines, and the swirls that you can see in the ashen remains over there. Some people say that that is to do with the fervent heat that came upon the place when it was destroyed suddenly. But, you know, very, very wicked things going on here in the Bible, talking about not only the sexual deviance and the sexual side, but also the sins with the angels, which seems to be something that was going on there in Genesis. And how many have you got of these?
Quite a lot, but here we've got probably about 30 or...
Let's see. They are huge. They are huge pieces. I'm glad you showed us them so we can actually see them, you know, that people at home can see these. Considering the Bible describes this as being once like an Edenic area, you see nowadays it's just completely dead, as we are told happened to this place that was judged. Today it's completely dead. Nothing is growing here. The whole thing is like sponge. And I really want to find one of those sulfur stones before the sun goes down. I really want to find one of those stones to show you. That is not a normal shape. That doesn't look natural at all. That is definitely seems to be a man-made shape. And is this not enough evidence for people to find all of these man-made looking structures, ashen remains, crumble in your hands, in the location where we're told in the Bible as evidence of God's judgment, as described by Josephus, historian, but then also finding circular, almost pure sulfur balls in the middle of the ash, in the middle of the walls and the shapes of the buildings. Is this not enough evidence for us to see that A, the Bible is true, and B, God is a just God and we need a saviour? Because sin requires punishment. Sin brings on the wrath of God, and this place is the evidence of the wrath of God, a holy God who is righteous and true. And this place was very rebellious, and not only went into sexual deviance and other deviances, but was also a place that was going into the spiritual abominations, going into that, and received absolute annihilation, turned to dust, with fire and brimstone that rained down from heaven. The brimstone is still evident in these ash structures, still evident, pure sulfur, and I believe has been studied and checked and found to be almost entirely pure. Some of the purest, if not the purest, that you can find in the world is in these ashen remains. Come on, folks, let's turn to the Almighty God who saved us from our sin and pardoned us from the penalty that we deserved, and that Jesus, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, his Son, who took that wrath for our eternal iniquity against God on the tree, on the cross, and took our punishment away. We have been saved. Turn to him. Turn to him before it's too late, because hell is real, hell is eternal, and if we don't accept the one who paid the price in full and settled the legal requirement for our sins, if we don't turn to him, we will suffer for eternity, justly, because we deserve it, and we've sinned against a holy and almighty God. Finally, after all this time, I found one. This piece of sulfur that I managed to find, I'm now going to burn it and see what happens. Here we go. Oh, that hits the back of your throat. Book of James here, therefore lay aside all filthiness and overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the planted word, which is able to save your souls. Be a doer of the word. Let's live out the word of God. And be merciful to others. So speak as those who will be judged by the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to the one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. God's mercy has triumphed over his judgment. He has shown us mercy that we did not deserve by saving us through Jesus. God in the flesh came and paid the price for our sin and showed us mercy when we did not deserve mercy. So we are all sinners, and we would all be condemned if it wasn't for Jesus. So because of his great love, let us be merciful to others. Let's love one another. Because God in his great love has shown us such mercy when we did not deserve it. And his mercy has triumphed over his judgment, that we are now forgiven, we are set free, need to be saved from the power of darkness, from the power of Satan unto God. That this is the liberty we find in Jesus, that we're no longer condemned for our sins, that we have been set free and made clean and new by his righteousness. And folks, there's no greater gift to receive than this. There's no greater love than to know the one whom loved us first and loved us so much that he laid down his life on the cross to set us free from eternal hell that we deserved, from the wrath of God on the unrighteousness and on the sin of this world. That we were part of that. We were part of that kingdom.